on ENCA. This is Mags on Media, and some media and marketing news in brief now. Now, the news and opinion website HuffPost and Media24 announcing a parting of ways after a short-lived partnership here in South Africa. Despite strong readership figures, the brand reportedly failed to attract advertising spend. The partnership came into being in November 2016, with Media24 operating the newsroom and driving the commercial aspect of that union. Now, Donald Trump would have noticed some interesting messages as he arrived in Helsinki for his much-vaunted summit with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. A Finnish newspaper lining the streets from the airport to the venue of the summit with 300 billboards reminding the American of the importance of press freedom. And actor Sacha Baron Cohen making his return to television with a dark comedy series entitled Who is America? The first installment of the show, which airs on the American television network Showtime, really had tongues wagging. Cohen, masquerading as an Israeli gun enthusiast, got an unwitting Republican politician to endorse a proposal to train toddlers in the use of firearms.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished guests, comrades and friends, the time for the healing of the wounds
has come. We shall walk tall without any fear in our hearts.
We know this well, that none of us acting alone can achieve success.
There is no easy road to freedom.
Don't judge me by how many times I've fallen down. Judge me by how many times I've gotten back up again.
Freedom cannot be achieved until all women are emancipated from all forms of oppression.
never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
Sometimes it falls on a generation to be great.
So that beautifully produced short film that you've just seen highlights an initiative by Dutch multinational technology company Philips, calling on South Africans to take part in an initiative to celebrate the 100th birthday of Nelson Mandela. It involved recreating Madiba's iconic hairstyle. And here to tell us more is Achisanang Masekela, who is a creative director at the Ogilvy and Mather ad agency. So let me see your hair first.
It's kind of growing back.
Just growing out a little bit.
But it was there, it was there.
So where did you latch onto the haircut idea first for this campaign?
Well, it came from literally just being aware of society. As we know, what often happens is the Madiba line, as it's commonly known, and we've seen how it spread from locally as well as globally, and we felt there was an interesting opportunity for us to celebrate Nelson Mandela's centenary through an iconic haircut.
What's the call to action here? What are you asking people to do and with what purpose?
Well, essentially is that we feel in celebration of Nelson Mandela's centenary is that there is an opportunity for us to reflect as a nation, a sense of introspection. And we feel that when you look at the likes of Nelson Mandela's values, that in today's age, we shouldn't forget these, from freedom, equality, and we feel that by cutting this line within your hair, you can, of course, move forward with these values that Madiba obviously wanted us to all live with. Isn't
this just a brand jumping on the name of a famous person?
It's
simply exploitative.
one could say that. When we were working on this, bringing on the likes of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, we first looked at the values in which both institutions shared. And that was, of course, integrity, freedom, and so forth. And we felt that there was an alignment of these values. And the purpose of the campaign was to bring a sense of conversation and celebration, first and foremost.
What sort of conversation?
A conversation around where is it that we sit as a nation, right? We are very much aware of a lot of the conversation that happens around in today's age, in 2018. And there's a lot that has been also forgotten around Nelson Mandela, essentially around what he stood for. And throughout this 2018 centenary, this campaign played a role in driving that conversation.
The foundation, the Nelson Mandela Foundation, that I understand you have worked in close collaboration with, is calling this a social movement.
Yes.
But as you've just demonstrated to me when I asked you to show me your haircut, hair grows, okay?
Yes.
So the idea I'm going to suggest to you is simply going to be forgotten the moment people's hair starts growing back. Or are there more components to it?
There's the most important component is the values we instill within ourselves. It's the haircut is the starting point, or I suppose moving back into remembering those values in which you stood for. But the values are very much inside. And we feel that anyone can cut their hair because anyone can have the values that Madiba stood for. But the most, as I say, the most important part is what's inside an individual.
But it could also just be seen as a trend or a fad. If I had more hair, I would have done it. But
I think you still could.
When you get to my age, you've got to be very careful. But what type of take-up have you had, one? And two, what have people been telling you as they've had their haircuts?
So the type of take-up that we have has been quite interesting. We felt that people would just shave a line and possibly just recite a line from him. What we've seen...
And take a selfie and put it on Instagram.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely,
which is what you want.
true, absolutely true. But we've seen how other individuals have brought in some who shared on social media, have brought in their family members. They have also put down their aspirations. They have remembered unique parts to Nelson Mandela that we wouldn't necessarily have thought of when we were sitting within the boardroom.
Do you have an example?
An example of individuals where people are looking to a future, they talked about how they have remembered Nelson Mandela for his dance moves. They've remembered him for his boxing.
Shirts?
Yeah, definitely, his shirts. And these are very much positive outtakes, which we're quite interested in looking at these perspectives in which people are seeing Madiba as. But very much excited to see where this campaign could go.
It's a beautiful film. There's absolutely no doubt about that. How was all of that put together? Was it difficult to construct and make?
Yes, it definitely was, especially because of our desired outtake. We were fortunate enough to work with the likes of Kim Geldenays from 0307 Films, in which we wanted to use everyday South Africans and capture them in their everyday struggles, right? We specifically looked at places in which we feel the likes of Madibas are necessary within these respective areas. And the key thing about it is that how the values of Nelson Mandela pulls through within this film is around the words. All these come from a speech from Nelson Mandela. And what we see as this golden thread throughout this film is individuals reciting his lines within their locations and doing so in a way in which hopefully you can feel that they are instilling his values within themselves. And how the film ends is somewhat a call to action that you yourself, regardless of how big your influence is, you yourself have a Madiba inside of you.
You talk about people asking about the Madiba in themselves.
Yes.
You're a young creative director.
That's true,
this
sir.
is a passion project, no doubt.
That's very true, sir.
What have you learned about yourself?
Is that the power of an idea. When we've been working on this idea for quite some time, for a few years, to be honest with you. And when we had this idea, we never knew how far it would go, where it would go. And we learned through tenacity, hard work, collaboration, and having an idea that is value-driven. tends to attract individuals, people, societies, and cultures around an idea that crosses borders. So I definitely learned about myself around the necessity to have tenacity, to collaborate with individuals, and for things to shape and move as things move forward.
And those are values, of course, that are emblematic as far as Madiba is concerned. That's
true, sir.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Creative Director at the agency Ogilvy. Next on the programme, the power of cinema advertising to reach new audiences, and an epic ad celebrating Serena Williams' return to Wimbledon.